welcome to everyone. This wonderful Friday day. I don't know how the weather is where everybody is, but we're very, very fortunate to have a very special guest today. Her name is Karen Shinn, and she is a downsizing diva, and comes with a lot of expertise. I met her, Janet and we met her when she did a presentation to the seniors group at my church. I don't know, say 10 years ago. Yeah, we can't figure it out.
I had dark hair at the time and no glasses.
Yeah, well, we were all a little bit different.
We were.
So I will pass it over to Brigitte, and she can give a proper welcome to Karen.
Thank you, Susan. Hi, everyone. Nice to see you all again. So like Susan said, today our expert is Karen Shinn. With a remarkable focus on managing senior and specialty moves, Downsizing Diva has become a leader in the industry. Karen Shinn launched SmartMove in 2001, while Gail Shields started All the Right Moves in 2003. Recognizing their shared vision and expertise, they merged in 2009 to form Downsizing Diva, the franchise company. Karen and Gail are trailblazers in senior and specialty move management, honored with the prestigious Margit Novack Award for Excellence in 2018 as the first and only Canadian senior move management company with NASMM A Accreditation. Downsizing Diva excels in preparing homes for sale, coordinating moves, and clearing houses. They also assist busy executors in clearing estates. Welcome, Karen.
Thank you. Let's share my screen. So let's go. Now it says whiteboard. Okay. Can everyone see my screen?
Yep.
It says it's not just stuff, it's my stuff. Everyone on the same screen? We're good? Perfect. Okay. So I'm thrilled to be part of this group today, this presentation to your Zoomer boomers. And as Susan said, we chatted back in February to organize this. And then all of a sudden realized I didn't have all the details last night. So it's been a little bit of a panic, but here we are. So I'm thrilled to be part of your list of experts that are talking about things of interest to you. And today, of course, my topic of interest that I am passionate about is downsizing and organizing. So I promise it won't be boring. We'll try to throw in a few lighthearted comments and we'll make it worth your while. And at the end of today, I hope you can just close off your computers and go and lighten up some little area of your house, because that, after all, is what we're all about. We're trying to lighten up. At Downsizing Diva, as Brigitte and Susan both said, we've been doing this since 2001. I said we'll have Q&A after, so questions and answers after. I said we have most of the answers, I think, most of the A's, but when we've heard most of the Q's. But we'll find out today. If you have any specific questions, please jot them down and we'll deal with them at the very end of the presentation. So we have someone waiting to come in. So I'm just going to let Charmaine in. So there, she got Charmaine into our group. We don't want anyone to miss out on this exciting topic. So here we are. And I'm now going to figure out how we get to the next slide, which is never easy on these things. So the next slide is, they're always different. There we go. Here we go. Did you know almost 75% of the people 60 plus are reluctant to move because they don't know what to do with their stuff? Can you imagine? We are living in a world where people are perhaps living in a home or an apartment or a condo that might not suit their needs. Perhaps their needs have changed due to mobility issues, health issues, financial issues, lots of reasons that people's needs change. And most people are stuck at the part that they're saying, oh, I can't do anything. I have to stay here because I've got so much stuff. I've got so much stuff. I don't know what to do with it. So for many people, that is the roadblock. And we're going to talk a bit about why and how and all those other things. But we are living in an aging population. So at this point, Canadians are aging and there's more older people than there are younger people. Figure that out. Doesn't feel like it sometimes. It feels like they're ignoring the older people, but apparently with numbers, that's not the case. For the first time in history, we have people whose 2 generations are collecting CPP and OAS at the same time. I can remember the day I turned, I think it was 60, and my mom and I were out at a restaurant in the States, and we went, it was Pancake House, I'll confess, and we went for breakfast, and we looked at each other, and both of us said, we'll order the seniors breakfast. That's happening more and more. We were legit at that time because we were both eligible for the seniors breakfast. But think about it, a lot of households, they're collecting their CPP and OAS, and their children are as well. So the aging population is changing a lot of the things that we know, and we're going to find out some ways to deal with this. The reason people don't know what to do with their stuff, quite honestly, is because there's usually a lot of it. They're overwhelmed, and it's the word we hear so often when people call us and say we need help. The word we hear is overwhelmed, and right after that we hear, I don't know where to start. Think about your house. If you are living in a fairly simplified home, good on you, because you are the exception. We are holding on to things for the most part that bring back memories. And the title of this talk, I've always called it, it's not just stuff, it's my stuff. Because I can deal with Susan's stuff, and Susan can deal with Janet's stuff. But dealing with her own stuff, oh no, because the stuff has memories and stories and a whole lot of other things. So we're going to talk about this. I mentioned earlier before we started with a couple of people who were on the call. This downsizing thing was a huge issue for many people during COVID. We all spent way more time in our houses than we wanted to. And we started looking around, and there's an old expression if you're in sailing, and they always say, if you have a large boat and you put a bunch of people on it for a length of time, the boat gets a foot smaller every week. So that it starts out lots of room for everybody, but 6 or 8 people in a boat, and you feel the walls start closing in on you, and your stuff starts to do the same thing. After a while, you don't even know the stuff's around you. You don't see it until someone perhaps takes a picture of your house and you go, oh my gosh, I'm embarrassed to show that. I didn't think it was quite that bad. And a lot of our clients will phone us and say, I live in a very, very tidy and streamlined home. And we go to see it and we think, in whose life are you dreaming here? Somebody else will say, oh, this place is cluttered. It's awful. I don't know where to start. We go in and we think, the Better Homes and Gardens truck is probably just gone with the photographer. It looks so nice. So everybody's definition of what they're living in is very different. So let's talk about yours. Now here we go. Let it go, let it go, let it go. Now, if this were winter, we'd be thinking of a different word for go, but today we're not, because it's not summer yet, but it's getting there. We always laugh and we say, did you know that you wear 20% of your clothes 80% of the time? Think about the clothes that are in your closet. You'll reach for the same top or pants or skirt or dress over and over and over. Then there are those clothes that are just beside your favorites that are sort of languishing because they never get out of the closet. These are things that you may have the buttons not fixed, or the zipper doesn't work, or hem's falling down. They're out of style. They're too big. They're too small. There's a reason you're not choosing them. But it's pretty amazing to know that consistently we are only wearing about 20% of the things in our closet. There's a really good spot to start. And I always suggest when you're going to downsize your closet, do it with a friend. Do it with a friend whose opinion you trust, and ask them if you try on things, and swap out, do it for each other. But ask them, if you try on something Could they give you their honest opinion on whether you should keep it or not? I keep trying on black and white things. And I went shopping the other day with a friend of mine, and I was trying on a really nice top. It was black and white, of course. And she looked at me and she says, it is time to get out of black and white because that's all you wear. Well, my first reaction was, harumph. I kind of liked this one. But then I thought, you know what? She's right. And I think it is time for me to embrace a bit more color. That's why I have bright blue on today. But you need to have, you don't need, it's nice to have someone whose opinion you trust to give you that other person's opinion of what it is you're holding on to and what you can let go of. So clearing your closet is a really good place to start. Now, for many people, they've said, well, we always say the most difficult thing to release is, can you think of what it might be? There's a clue in the picture. If you don't have an idea, we have found over the years that the most difficult thing for people to release is paper. Now, it could be old postcards, it could be old letters, love letters, and some of them you're not going to release, so that's okay. It could be catalogs, newspapers, magazines, cuttings from magazines. It could be invoices, old bills. I once helped a woman move or organize her dad's paperwork, and he had the income tax forms that went back to 1927. 1927. Every year he put the one in front of the other, and they were in chronological order. They were very thin in 1927. They got thicker as we went along. He didn't need to keep them all. After all, the regulations only say you need to keep those documents for 7 years. So we are going to talk about, because, what someone else said to me, well, what is the easiest thing to let go of? The easiest thing to let go of is somebody else's stuff. It's not yours. It's always somebody else's. We get phone calls from people saying, I want you to come and organize my husband. And we say, does your husband know you're making this phone call? Their response is usually, well, no, but I thought we'll introduce you when you got, we go, no, we don't work that way. We are not that mediator that you surprise somebody else with. Yes, did you get your husband to call and we're happy to help. So the easiest thing to let go of is someone else's stuff. So at this point, we always say to people, when you're doing a senior move, we call them L'Oreal moves. So if you're thinking of moving, think of that commercial for L'Oreal. Remember the tagline? Because I'm worth it. When you begin your downsizing process now, think about keeping the things that are the good stuff. Let go of the stuff that's okay. And let's take, for example, the mugs in your kitchen cupboard. I always like to start with the mugs because there's such a selection of them. We hold on to these coffee mugs like we collect them, like they're valuable collections. And for many people, they have coffee mugs with radio stations on them, with service centers, like your gas station might give you a coffee mug, your realtor might give you one. If you are in the point now of looking at retirement residences, whenever you go to a retirement residence, they'll often give you a coffee mug. So you could have, Amica, Chartwell, the big ones will give you coffee mugs. The question is, what coffee mug do you bring out, or coffee mugs do you bring out when you have company? You bring out the good ones. So why aren't you using the good ones every day? Because you're worth it. So if you start today after this session, when it's over, maybe take all your coffee mugs out, put them on the counter, and think, if I had company today, which ones would I use for coffee? Put them back and put the other ones in a box and donate them. That's just that first step in treating you as well as you treat your guests. So you're worth it. Think L'Oreal as you're doing your downsizing, and the I'm worth it. It all boils down to keep the best, lose the rest. So that's a really good thing to repeat to yourself as you're doing this. Now, one of the things that we have found is we've come up with something we call true confessions. Now, I think in the presentation I did at Susan's church, you may have heard this one. It's often a fun thing for us to do at a live presentation, because we have everyone stand up and then we read things that we say, if this is true for you, please sit down. Now, the virtual world is a little bit different because we can't look around and see where our friends sit down and sort of think, I know their secrets. But this true confessions is quite fun. So I thought I'd read some of them today, just so you have an idea of the type of things that people do hold on to and think it's perfectly normal to do that. So are you ready for true confessions? Here we go. The first one, I have a copy plus a backup for every single income tax return I have ever filed.
Yep.
We find these are the accountants, bean counters. They like documents and they keep them a long time and they keep them in order. But what about, I have high school or university textbooks, notebooks, or yearbooks? I'm watching Janet. No to the first, no to the second, yes to the third. So
Yeah, I still have my yearbooks.
I know, because we haven't changed a bit since those days, have we?
Mm,
No. And that's what we say. You go to reunions and you go, who are all these bald-headed men? Oh, those are the really good-looking guys that you thought, oh, we're so hot in high school. We have changed, all of us. But we do hold on to certain things, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just we want to be able to discern between the stuff we want to hold on to and the stuff we don't need to.
Fourth block.
So the next one is, oh, we've got somebody who's talking, and if they could mute the mic, we'd be fine. I can't see who it is though.
Yeah.
That would be good. Perfect. I have unopened boxes from my last move. People who've moved, they've downsized, they got to the new place, but they have a basement or storage locker that still contains items that they haven't even addressed. I have sports equipment for sports I no longer play. Now, a lot of people, when they retire, think they're going to take up some sport, and they end up not, or they buy the equipment and then decide it's not for them. Here's the favorite one of mine. My children have moved out, but their stuff is still at my house. That's the moms that are really gentle and kind and let their kids store things until it comes time for mom and dad to move. And then, oh, the gloves are off and the kids have to get the stuff out, or it'll be turfed out with them. I have bags of bags and boxes of boxes, because you never know when you're going to have to wrap a present. You know, this is a really good box. I don't think I'll throw it out. Or those people who keep the boxes for everything they buy, and they store the empty boxes in the basement. Chances are, if you bought a new TV, and you don't need to keep the box, because if you're going to keep it in the house and it works, you're going to keep it in the house. If it doesn't work, you're going to get rid of it. And if you're going to move it, the movers have their own boxes. There's no need to keep these giant sized boxes for computers and TVs and all of this electronic stuff that we hold on to. Be selective. Another good one is, I have a great selection of sample lotions and potions, many of which I took from hotel rooms or fast food shops. I can't tell you the number of little Tupperware containers without lids we find in fridges that contain ketchup, mustard, relish, and vinegar. Oh, and soy sauce, that's a fake, and plum sauce. Those little packages people get with their fast food deliveries and just don't think they should let them go. Turn around and look in their kitchen drawers, and you'll likely find a whole lot of little packages of plastic knife, forks, and spoons with serviette and salt and pepper. So do you need to keep all this stuff? No. Do people? You bet. Right up there with the margarine tubs. They're holding on to it because it's going to come in handy one day. I have more serving dishes than my family or I will ever use, They'll say, oh, this is so cute. This is so nice. Oh, I love it. I love the size of this one. Nothing stacks into each other. So it's a tower of tumbling things, but we hold on to that as well. Many people have more than 3 hammers and tape measures and screwdrivers, all those tools. We only need one thing, and it's the same in the kitchen. You only really need one whisk, one sieve. You know, you don't need duplicates, triplicates, and even more. What about your family photos? Many people want to do something with them, but they don't. They're all over the house. The first thing you can do if you're thinking, oh, family photos, that's the problem I have, is start putting them in a large box. I'm talking a laundry bag or one of those laundry baskets. Put it in a spot that's not in your way and start putting your photographs all in one place. That at least gets them localized. What you do with them next, we can talk about it. But first of all, find them because they're everywhere. They're tucked in little drawers, they're in books, they're in boxes, they're in bags, they're all over the house. That's a project that can take time. Gail and I, Gail's my business partner, we used to laugh and say, when we helped people move, they had photographs all over. And we'd say to them, let's put them in a box. We'll send them to the new house because you don't have time to go through them now. But when you get to your new place, that first snowy day, go to the back of your cupboard. We'll put them in a place that's easy to get at. Pull them out and start sorting through them. Make yourself a cup of tea and start sorting your photographs. The first snowy day of every season, Gail and I looked at each other and we'd say, how many of those people we moved do you think are looking at their photographs today? And we knew the answer. The answer was none, absolutely none, because they're all busy doing something else. They were now enjoying living their life. They weren't stuck in their stuff. How about my recipe file is overflowing and I don't cook that much anymore? I had a friend who said to me recently, I'm collecting all the recipes that I use for my son and my husband in case anything happens to me. I said, you don't even cook? Well, I used to, she said. I said, well, maybe you're better just to give them the websites of the different places you order in from. That's certainly more in keeping with the way you do dinner. Well, that was true, she decided. So we had a chuckle over that. And some people have so many craft supplies, and for the case of men, lumber or tools, that they could open their own store. So after we go through that list of all those true confessions, and if anybody is still standing, which is rare, we say to them, remain standing if everything in your closet fits. Well, then they all laugh and they sit and then nobody ever stands for that. Well, seldom will someone stand for that. But that's just an idea of some of the things we hold on to as we're going through all of the things that we think are important in our lives. So the question is, I think every time I think I've got this figured out, I've lost it. So we're on down. So hold the fort here. Hold the fort. I'm trying to get to the next image and I thought I knew how I was doing this. Where is it? Grr. Nope. Nope. How do I get to my next slide? Oh, here. This might do it. There we go. So what you think is treasure may not be. What you think is trash might have value. Oh, that's an interesting thought. Let's think about what's the difference between trash and treasures. Well, if you start off thinking that everything you own is something that either you want to keep or your family or friends want to keep, you're in big trouble. We have been saying for years that the secret to successful downsizing is to repeat this sentence over and over and over until you believe it. Want to know what the sentence is? The sentence is, my family probably does not want my stuff.
Yeah.
If you can say that sentence over and over until you believe it, you are most of the way towards your successful downsizing. But if you keep thinking, well, my daughter would like my dining room suite, and my son would like my dishes, and my best friend would absolutely love something else, you're going to be stuck in that whole downsizing path and you're not going to get out of it. So let's see how we can deal with all of these things. Again, knowing that we are an aging society, that there's more stuff coming on the market from the people at the top. It's like an avalanche. So all of the stuff is coming down the mountain from the people letting go. And we're calling these people, oh, the boomers and zoomers, they're letting go. And at the bottom of that avalanche or that mountain is a bunch of Y2Ks and millennials going, we don't want this stuff. We do not want this stuff. They seem to be off enjoying living their lives. Well, there's a change of heart. They want more to collect things, experience, not stuff. For many of the millennials and Y2Ks, their stuff is tied up in electronics. As my nephew said to my dad years ago, holding up, do you remember the iPods? He held up a little iPod, it wasn't very big, and he said to my dad, Grandpa, he said, I have 1,400 songs on this little thing. Now, my dad would be thinking in terms of LPs or tapes or all the things he would have been used to storing 1,400 songs on. But he looked at my nephew and he said, Derek, I don't think I know 1,400 songs. So for him, that was okay. That was a good answer. But their electronic storage takes up much less space than our idea of rows of LPs or CDs or DVDs. It's all on, the cloud, which I think is kind of overcrowded at the moment anyway, but that's where it is. So these young people, the millennials and Y2Ks, are storing things electronically, which take up a lot less room, and they're not consuming the volume, for the most part, they're not consuming the volume of stuff that we, as the boomers and zoomers, have been doing. We are not holding on to things like the people who grew up during the Depression. Although we may have been influenced by Depression mentality, I can't throw this out because it could come in handy someday. And that covers your margarine tubs, that covers, elastic bands, that covers pencils, pens, whatever. The excuse of it could come in handy one day is very much the Depression mentality thinking. And these young people just don't have it. If we've had kids come and look at all of the things in their grandma's house, and you'd say, is there anything you'd like from your grandma's house? And one of them looked at me and said, well, I'd take a couple of her thimbles. Well, that was a drop in the bucket. This lady had a house full of stuff, and her granddaughter wanted a couple of her thimbles. Was not going to make a big dent in what the work we had to do. They don't want the stuff for the most part, and they're not the least bit shy about telling you. I think they border on hurtful, I think, if some of them, because they're just so definite that they're not the answer to your problem of letting go. So you want to start looking at what you think you treasure. For many of us, treasuring things like dining room suites, bedroom suites, the big purchase items that we've spent, maybe artwork, but the treasures are things that for the most part, we spend a lot of money on. What you think is trash could be something like this photograph that we're looking at, things like we've got, what have we got in here? We've got old games or puzzles or games from when your children grew up. They could be vintage now. They may have some value. So the things you think are just old toys might have value. I'm not saying they do, but they might have value. So be very careful. And that's why they invented the internet. You can look up all kinds of things on the internet to see if you've got something that might be a collector's item. I know a friend of my mom's had what was her name? Shirley Temple doll. She had an original Shirley Temple doll that her mother bought her when she was, I think, 6 or 7, and her mother wouldn't let her play with it. She had to keep it in the box. It still had the cello wrap around her head to keep her hair straight. It had not been taken out of the box. So Jean had this Shirley Temple doll. And when she had 2 girls, you could imagine what she bought them. They each had Chatty Cathy dolls that they were not allowed to play with, that still had the cello wrap around the hair on their heads. I don't know what they did with them, the girls, Debbie and Norma, but I know that this Shirley Temple doll was a real keepsake for their mom. She thought that was a treasure, and she was probably right. But those people who put away the newspaper, full newspaper of the day Kennedy was assassinated, the first walk on the moon, the change to January 1st, 2000, the year the Blue Jays won the pennant the first time, the year they won it the second time. Everybody put those away, so they're not the treasure you think they would be. So you have to be, it's foresight, and a lot of people we just don't have. If we knew now what was going to be worth money in 20 years, we'd all be rich, wouldn't we? Because we'd put away the right things. What we're putting away is often just memories for us. But it is the things that another friend, his dad, every payday would bring home 2, I don't know if you remember, they were called Matchbox cars, little metal cars. And he'd bring back one that was in a box. They were both in boxes. One Doug could play with and one he had to put aside. So he had, I don't know, about 100 in their original boxes, which I can only imagine would be worth a good bit of money. I think his sister, I don't know what she got every week, but it wasn't going to increase in value as much as Doug's matchbook toys did. So it's really difficult to predict the future. But that'll just give you an idea of what you're thinking might be trash, might be worth something, and what you think is really, really important and valuable might not be. One thing people often ask us about is books. I've got old books. Are they worth any money? So let me just tell you my little story. I don't know if any of you have heard of the books, Freddie the Pig. Well, Freddie the Pig was a story. It was a collection of books about a pig. When my brother and I were 7, 8, 9, we had twin brothers and they were 4 years younger. So when my mom took care of them, my dad would take us to the library. We'd go for story time and we could take out what we called chapter books. My chapter books were Dr. Dolittle. I liked Dr. Dolittle. But Stu, my brother, loved Freddie the Pig. And that was his book of choice. So fast forward a number of years, and I'm working with this woman who's having a garage sale. I go over to her garage sale, and she has a library. Well, I grew up in Scarborough. I didn't know what a library was in a house. I knew a library in the library. 4 walls of books. I thought, this is amazing. The bottom row was a complete works of Freddie the Pig. I said, how much for the books? And she says, oh, 4 for $1. So I think I paid $5. I got about 22 books. And I took them home and I said to my brother, whose daughter was 2 at the time, I got these books for you to read to Christy. Well, that's stupid, he says. She's only 2. She's not going to like that. So I put them at the back of my bookshelf. I don't know. Do you have a bookshelf where you have a row at the back and then a row at the front because you have so many books? They stayed at the back of my bookshelf for years. And then one day I thought, this is too much. I got to get rid of the books. So I looked at them and I realized that, this was a whole collection. I phoned the Toronto Library. They didn't want them. But I talked to my friend who was working in a children's bookstore. She says to me, well, is there anything special about the books? I said, well, they're just Freddie the Pig books. I don't think there's anything special. Well, I went home and discovered they were first edition, signed by the author. Oh, so because I'm an organized person, I made an Excel spreadsheet. I put the name of the book, the condition of the cover of it, whether it was signed, what edition it was, and I had this whole thing printed up. I then went, and this is what's might be interesting to you if you have any books. I went to a website and it was abebooks.com, abebooks.com. And I looked up all the people who were trying to sell Freddie the Pig books. And I sent them all little emails with my Excel spreadsheet saying, are you interested in any of these Freddie the Pig books? To that, I got 2 letters back. One of them said, this is a great collection. How much do you want? And the other said, yes, I'd be interested. Name your price. Well, I knew at that point I shouldn't put the price on it because I quite frankly didn't know what they were worth. I thought they could have been trash and they may have ended up being treasure. So I went to a bookstore, for those who remember, on Mount Pleasant and Eglinton, if you're familiar with Toronto, there used to be a store called Contact Books. I took my box of books, which were in a grapefruit box, and the man put on white gloves, lifted up the box, and very carefully would take out each book. When he got to the bottom, there was all these, you know how paper deteriorates and there's little bits of paper. He collected all that and put it in an envelope. I knew we were talking about some money here. He took them in a back room and came back in about what seemed like hours, but was probably about 10 minutes. And he says to me, I'll give you $1,000 for the books. For some reason, I said to him, I have a partner in this deal, so I can't sell them, but I'll let you anytime, he said. So then I went back and I don't know what made me wait, but the next day I got an email from a president of a Freddie the Pig fan club. Who'd have thought there'd be one? He said, you've got a really good collection. I want to validate the signature. Could you send me one of the books? And I said, no, I can't send you the book, but I can photocopy the signature pages, which I did. So a couple of weeks later, he wrote me back and he's from the States. And you know how we are as Canadians, American dollars and Canadian dollars, bring on the American dollars. He says, I will give you $2,500 for your books, US. Well, at this point, the dollar was about as good as it is now. And I thought, this is grand. And I was all set to ship them to him until I got the second letter that was from the other person who'd inquired. And she said, did you ever sell the books? I said, I have an offer for $2,500 US. Within 5 minutes, she sent me another email and it said, I'll give you $3,500 US for the books. That worked out to $5,200. That was the best investment I've ever made in my life. I have not done the same thing. I wish I could, but I don't know how. But it did teach me a lot about trash and treasure. I then ended up going over to the States, buying the box and the wrapping, and these boxes that lived for 20 odd years in a grapefruit box were now individually wrapped and sent to a lady in New York. And I got the check for $3,500 US on July the 4th that year. And I was very happy. So that's my long way of saying what you think is treasure may not be, what you think is trash could very well be worth some money. I know I don't have any idea of what books are being collected now, but I would imagine a first edition copy of Harry Potter, anything would be worth money, but you never know. So don't just let go of things. Do your homework. That's what the internet's there. It's accessible. All of us can use it. Just look things up. If you think you might have something of value, ask more questions, but don't just pile things and put it out on the front lawn. Recently, there was a thrift shop out in Kitchener-Waterloo that looked at a picture. I was talking to them the other day. They looked at this painting and they thought, would anybody buy it? I mean, it was quite primitive. Well, it turned out to be a Maud Lewis. And for anyone who knows Maud Lewis from Nova Scotia, it ended up going for something like thousands and thousands of dollars. And they were ready to put it in with a tag on it for $2. They asked the question. So be careful what you let go of. It's not all worth lots of money, but certainly some of it is. So it's worth knowing and it's worth asking the questions. Whoa. So let's talk a bit about this downsizing and why do people think more about downsizing? What makes them think about it? Well, most of the time they're moving. People don't often think about downsizing when they're living in their house, unless they're stuck in their house like COVID, in which case they could think all they wanted, but there weren't many places you could let go of things. those stores, the organizations, the charity shops, they were all closed down because of COVID. And then they started getting pretty selective. So the ability to donate even was challenged during COVID, but things have loosened up a bit now, but we're still finding there's not a huge interest in people buying, as we call it, used furniture. It's no longer that. And we see so many of our clients will look at something and say, but it's solid wood. And they're so surprised when their children and grandchildren are quite content with things from IKEA, which in their opinion is not solid wood. So people often move because the times they are a-changing. Maybe their spouse has passed away, the situation has changed, empty nesters, but things are changing and they just don't need as much space. Or people have mobility issues. All of a sudden, they're now using a walker and it doesn't work because they have a 2-story house, or they're using a cane to begin with, or a scooter. They need wider doorways. People move for the health of it. They want to be closer to healthcare providers. They want to be in places where they're going to be able to get maybe meals prepared, somebody to help them with their medication. Some people think about moving, therefore downsizing, because the house they're in has just become too much work. It's one thing to hire a snow removal company, but then you have to think, what do I do in the summer? Am I prepared to continue? And even though I may love gardening, it might become more and more work. Am I prepared to pay to have someone do the gardening too? What about the roof? How am I maintaining the house? If I'm not maintaining the house, I'm not keeping the value up in it. So things just become too much work. Some people, if they live in major cities, are saying, my house is worth what? Yes, I'll put it on the market. I'd like to see that kind of money for my house because I only paid $7,800 for it back in 1957. So everything's going up. Maybe people want to take advantage. A lot of people are saying they may have cottages or they may have a place they go to in Florida. The insurance is getting way too expensive to go out of the country for any length of time in the winter. And the cottage with the rocks and the uneven terrain is more of a challenge as our mobility decreases. So they may sell the cottage, decide not to go to Florida, and then just move to a smaller place in the city. And so many people want to move and get to it, the next place they want to be. They want to do the transition. Well, they can make the decision themselves, not have someone make it for them. But moving is the prime reason most people will start looking at downsizing. Otherwise, we've lived here for so long. We know where things are. We don't have to worry. But we suggest that the best time to start downsizing is now. Start in a small area. Don't start with an entire room. Start with a cupboard, a closet, a drawer, or a shelf. Start small, but start today. That's why I challenge you when you're finished in this session, turn off your computer, make a cup of tea or a glass of wine, maybe. Is it time? Oh, almost. And just decide you're going to tackle one area. Maybe it's the junk drawer. Dump everything out and then take a look and see what needs to go back. But if you check off one little thing a day, by the time you may decide to move, you'll have a lot of this work done. And that's the good part. So you see this little magic hat. What about me and magic? Now, at Downsizing Diva, we came up with this because when people are letting go of things, they're using words like purge, get rid of, dump. They're not using gentle words. These are really kind of like final words. We like to hear people use more positive words like release, share, donate. It just sounds better than get rid of. So we have suggested to our clients when we're looking at a room to see what's going to be moved with someone, and they start pointing around at the different things in the room, we want them to use the word me for anything that you know you want to keep. So all of the items, the me items, would be in a bedroom. You'd keep the bed, you'd keep the 2 end tables, perhaps. You'd keep a dresser. They'd all be me items. So as you're pointing around the room, it's me, 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 me. Now, something you want to let go of becomes magic. It's just going to disappear. And that's where we come in. Or that's where you know that you're not taking it with you. You must figure out where it can go to make it disappear. So me and magic just makes it a bit nicer, a gentler process. And then the magic part, you can make things disappear by selling them, donating them, recycling them, or I know sometimes just throwing them out. We like to be as green as we can. So we like to be environmental about everything we do. And it's often a challenge, but you have to start. And we said one of the things about downsizing is knowing when to start and starting small, but starting today. So I'm going to ask Brigitte to help me now. She is going to put, and there's a little area at the bottom of your screen that says chat. If you, it's at the top of mine, it was at the bottom. But if you find that bar on your computer and hit the word chat, you should see a link to a landing page. It says landingdownsizingdiva.com. If you click on that link, that will take you to what we call our downsizing wheel. So if you'll do that, we'll talk about what's on the wheel. All you have to do is at the very top of that page, it says spin. If you spin it, it should be moving around and you will land on something with that little white line. Now does it work? Nod your head if it's working for you. If not, you can go, okay, well, I'll send you a link to that later. So you haven't lost it if you can't get it on this presentation. But you can see all the things that are on the wheel. Coffee mugs, we've talked about those. Maybe that's where you'll start today. This wheel was designed to have people who say, I don't know where to start. It gives them somewhere to start. Now, you might look, and as a friend of mine, I think there's one on makeup or something. There is. My friend doesn't wear makeup. So she clicked on it. It said makeup. She says, good, I'm done for the day. I don't have to do anything. It's not quite the purpose of the wheel, but that was her approach. So this just gives you some ideas, and you may land on it and think, I could do my craft supplies today. I could deal with the stuff because I'm no longer, maybe I'm no longer doing folk art painting, and I'll pack all that stuff up. But the lady in the apartment down the hall from me, she's doing folk art. So I'm going to ask her if she wants my stuff, and I'll just pass it along. We call that safe passage. The term safe passage means that you find something that is surplus to your needs, but you're able to connect with someone who would value it as much as you do and would use it, which makes you feel good giving it to them. So safe passage is a really nice way to pass along items that you no longer want, use, or need, and get them in the hands of somebody who will appreciate them. So use that term, think of that term safe passage when you look at some of these things. If you spin again, you might come up with something else. In this case, I've come up with cleaning stuff. How much cleaning supplies, how many cleaning supplies do we actually need? More importantly, do we use? So that might be a spot you think, I'm going underneath the kitchen sink and I am going to get rid of most of the stuff because I really just use, what is that? My mother, it's called goof off or something. Anyway, it takes stickies off from labels, and Windex and detergent, like dish detergent, and maybe silver polish. So maybe I only need 4 things. So either use up what you don't need or give them to someone else who will use it. And it's all about moving things along. If you're not using product, the old one in, one out works. But sometimes it's, if you haven't used it in a few years, maybe you don't need it. So think of your things in that light and spin one more time. Now, if you go and you've spun a number of times, you think, okay, I've done this and I'm done for the day. I want you to just slide down on your screen till you see the words. You've started downsizing. Now find out where to get rid of your surplus stuff. Can you see that? And if you click Start Now, you will be taken to a sign-in page. You don't have to sign in, but if you'd like, we will send you a little handout that's called Where to Get Rid of Stuff. You can sign up, and then you will also be signed up for some newsletters that will give you some more Diva tips and ideas of how to downsize. You can unsubscribe at any time. We don't want to be sending you things you don't want to receive, but this will just give you some idea of where you could start the process. Now, Bridget, we're going to take, oh, here we go. I'm back on the screen. Can you see me? What about me and magic? Is that back on your screen? Oh, perfect. So what we're going to do with the next one is we're going to go to, we've done the wheel, and this will help you simplify your home and simplify your life. It doesn't have to be done by Friday. Oh, today's Friday. It doesn't have to be done by Monday. It can be done in little dribs and drabs. But my challenge is to either pick. If it were me, I would suggest you either pick the junk drawer or your clothes closet and give it a whirl. It's late in the afternoon, so you want to do something small, do the junk drawer or the mug shelf. That's a good one. Pick the mug shelf and then start using mugs that you love. Keep only the mugs that if you grabbed one mug out of your mug shelf, you'd like it too. And get rid of the rest because they're not serving you the purpose. They're not treating you like you should be treated. And that's like, you matter. If you wake up in the morning and you are vertical, I always have to think about this one. We say, if you wake up in the morning and you're vertical, which is standing up, not lying down dead with your hands across your chest, it's a good day. Use the good dishes, the good silver, and the good glassware. They tell me wine tastes so much better out of Waterford crystal. I think wine tastes good out of a styrofoam cup, but it probably tastes much better out of good crystal. So start treating yourself like the wonderful person you are and use the good stuff. Because if you're saving the good stuff for good, I hate to tell you this, but a lot of clients that we've worked with have been doing that. And the good stuff went to Goodwill. That's not the good you meant. And if you break that place setting of 12 and you crack a cup or break a plate, who cares? Your kids probably don't want that pattern anyway. And if they do, it's short one plate. Big deal. They can get another one. But why shouldn't you have, I can remember years ago saying to my mom, I think I'm going to, true confessions, my flatware came from the Esso station at the corner. And I bought a place setting for $1 every time I filled up with gas. So I had a place setting for 12. It wasn't fabulous, but it worked. And I had it for years. I said to my mother, I think I'm going to get rid of my flatware. I'm going to buy new stuff. And she said, well, you're so smart. Why don't you take your own advice? She says, do what you tell people in your talks. Use the good stuff. So I got out my good dish, my good flatware. It was only silver plate, but it was good for me. And I've been using it now for 10 years. And you know what? I still like it. And you have to polish it a little bit because the eggs make the silver on the tines of the fork go funny. But for the most part, I have one set of flatware and I'm using it. I have one set of dishes and I'm using them because it's nice. And who's gooder than me? Think about that. And it cuts down a lot of space in your cupboards too, because you're not storing your good dishes and your good silver and your everyday dishes and your everyday flatware. Think about it. You can start by simplifying just by getting rid of the stuff you're using every day and use the good stuff. All of this advice, I'm quite surprised. It's just so logical in so many ways. Whoops. And here we go. We're at the end. We're ready for questions. Now, we've got everything covered. We've covered everything. Has anyone got any questions? Because at the end of this, I'm going to send a note to Susan, I think, or somebody with a little bit of information as to how to find our Diva wheel again, how to sign up for our newsletter, which you might want to get every month. It comes out with some tips on it. And the other thing we're doing is something we call Tickle Me Tuesdays. And we were so depressed during COVID, we thought somebody needs to lighten up. So we send out a little joke or a little cartoon every Tuesday, and we ask people to sign up if they want to be tickled on Tuesdays. So you can sign up for that too. All that should come from the Office of Little People of Ontario, not from me. And if you want to sign up, give it a try. You can cancel it, as I said, at any time. So let's deal with questions. Anybody got any? I'm ready. Susan, where are the questions?
I don't know. Would you have someone that could come in and wash sheer drapes?
That's not what we do, because we do the decluttering, we do the simplifying, organizing. But just put a word out. If you live in an apartment, put a word up in the laundry room. Somebody can help. I'm sure you, or ask around. It's not what we do. We help people downsize and move. But
right.
Certainly the divas are there as move managers. We can coordinate a move if that's what you're doing, and we can help you, take all those steps. If you don't feel you're ready to tackle the downsizing on your own, that's what we do. But there's lots of service providers out there who are wonderful, wonderful people who could help. And it's all about asking around, isn't it? And finding out, your contacts and who somebody else has used and they were good. That's what you want.
Yeah.
Anything else? Oh, right.
Here, Karen, when you,
Oh, yeah.
oh,
Jen,
okay.
right? Okay.
I just saw the screen go kind of. When you met, I forget, what was I going to say? Oh, when you mentioned the first year of COVID and what I did, like I was home alone and everything, and I started emptying, cleaning out cupboards and stuff like that. And, I had different piles for recycling, reusing, donating, stuff like that. And it ended up my living room got full of stuff because I had all these piles. I got them out of cupboards and my living room got crazy. So then I ended up, okay, what do I do now? And 1 month, 2 months, 6 months, 12 months.
I know.
So so some of the stuff ended up going back in cupboards because I couldn't stand it in the living room. So but no, that's what I did in the first year of COVID. So
well, unlike you leaving it in your living room, other people moved it to the car thinking, well, I'll just take it when these places open up. And then their car got fuller and fuller and fuller because these places took forever to reopen.
That's right. Yes.
Now, when you're doing it, it's certainly dropping things off at thrift stores or Value Village, people will, they either love it or hate it. But Value Village is certainly, they are for profit, no question. But they do take most things. So, there's a win there as well. But you've got some Goodwills around, depending on where you live in the province. But Value Village, Talese, I think, takes things. And then often if you listen and you're involved in church groups or things, there's a lot of new immigrants coming in that need household items. So you can just select your place to give your items safe passage, and that makes you feel good. We have found that if we know it's going to somewhere that somebody will use it, we feel better about letting it go. For us as a company that helps people downsize, I always say the most feared words in our vocabulary is when our clients say to us, well, I know what I'm taking when I move. I want you to sell everything else. And we go, oh my gosh, because the reality is we can't. Some people will tell you they can. The reality is it's just not that much of a market for used stuff these days. And as you see, although thrift shoppers, thrift shopping is becoming more of it's not out of necessity anymore. It's become more of a game. It's become a game for a lot of people, is going to the thrift stores. And if you do watch Facebook or you're connected on social media and you see so many people say, let's go into the Goodwill and see what we can find and sell for a profit. That's what they're doing. And It's quite interesting. Mary, did you want to?
Tuesday. The one thing we did, we got rid of all our old dishes because we bought a new set of dishes. We got rid of all the old pots and pans, and how we did it, we put them in the box, and the diabetes picked them up, so we didn't have to take them. And so sometimes the diabetes and the cerebral palsy, they call you and they say, "Do you have any old stuff to get rid of?" And we said, "Oh yeah," so we already got that organized and
Good for you.
just put it out in the front door by 8 o'clock, and they picked them up, middle of the day. But thank you very much. I have to go,
Okay.
but thank you very much for it. It's very informative, so it helped me out a lot
Well,
because
I'm
we got
glad you
lots of
enjoyed
stuff.
it. I'm glad
Yeah.
you enjoyed it. Watch for the email that we'll be sending you, and you can continue the journey.
Oh, thank you.
Take
Everyone
care.
take care.
Thanks, Mary.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
Mary.
Bye.
Bye, Mary.
All right. Anyone else, or are we wrapping it up? Are we good to wrap it up? I think we are. I think we're good to wrap
Yeah.
up.
Okay.
Okay, so can I just finish with, this is something that we use. I go to the United Church, and this happens to be one of the hymns from the United Church. You're fortunate, because I'm not going to sing it because I'm still looking for my singing voice since kindergarten. Haven't found it yet. But this particular hymn goes like this, and I think it's so telling. Come and find the quiet center in the crowded life we lead. Find the room for hope to enter. Find the place where we are freed. Clear the chaos and the clutter. Clear our eyes so we can see all the things that really matter. Be at peace and simply be. The important things in life aren't things. So I challenge you now to see which ones you don't need at your house. Put them in a box, and as soon as you get that box filled, take it and donate it, and continue to do that until you feel you're living in a clutterless house, not clutter-free, but you're living to do, not living to get. And that's the true challenge of what we're doing. If you simplify your home, you simplify your life. And if you can find everything in it, you're a happier person. So thank you for your time today. We will, I'm pretty sure that Susan will help me get this email out to all of you. And you can continue the journey with us if you like. If not, get to that closet, get to those mugs, and do something today. It's a beautiful day, but it's not sunbathing weather yet. So enjoy the day and do a little decluttering before dinner. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I really
Thank-
enjoyed.
Thank you very, very much.
You're welcome.